skeptical in interacting with these Western countries. What do you make of that kind of reaction?
Whenever you put forward political interest, what else do you expect? You try to punch holes in everything. As we said, pessimists will always see calamity in every opportunity, whereas people with objectivity will see a moment of success and opportunity in such situations. I sit in the Committee of Finance and National Planning, and the beauty of committees, we always engage on matters budget as part of our role on oversight and budget making process. The French firm, which initially initiated negotiation on the Rironi-Mao summit, which never took place for some reasons, had contractual obligation with Kenya. And since the ties and the bottlenecks that were existing for that progress, for that project to progress, to reach a point of giving way, but there were processes, since already there were contractual obligation and terms which had already been engaged. So it had reached a point of parting ways. But indeed, there was aspect of liquidation of those contracts. I'm fully aware, unless I'm told otherwise, fully aware in my mind, the supplementary budget for the financial year 2024, I think so, it was presented in our committee, a request of 6 billion by National Treasury to be able to discharge that obligation, which we heeded to it, and we approved it. We recommended to the National Assembly, to the House, for the final approval, and it was indeed approved, 6 billion Kenya shillings for that purpose. So this other aspect of a diversion of other money, then it means the money was far beyond 6 billion. But what we were told is 6 billion, and that's what we approved, and that's what has been executed, and that's what has given yield now to the current engagement of the road construction. I don't know why and this is not the first time, we've always perceiving developmental progress or any progress as some, especially in opposition, for far too long, always looking at a negative eye. You try to look at,
Isn't that the work of the opposition?
It's all right, but look at now, such an area, what was happening in Nairobi. These are issues that are internal affairs. We want to wash ourselves, our linen outside. For God's sake. Does it mean that we are failing institutions? So will they come and help us now? Does it mean already we have EACC, we have DC, we have DBP, we have all these agencies? Does it mean we have a failed institution? That you could not look at this? Yes, Auditor General has flagged out a risk. What happened this seems from there, the recommendation that which the Auditor General has made on that? Because I'm aware, yes, there's the money of fuel levy, which has been already part of negotiation, has been used because the aspect of securitization, which has played a role in the 40 billion money which was pledged by the government of Kenya for the BBP to run. That is the current works which are happening in Mau Summit, the road between Mau Summit. And of course, for God's sake, I used that road to get to the western part of Kenya. And it's troubling for you to go.
So you're not necessarily
so why we are pinching on,
you're saying government approved, the parliament approved.
Yeah, the 6 billion.
Yes.
It was appropriated through the budget, through the national budget.
But
not even on the fuel levy.
It's not
so
even
it's
about
okay,
the road,
not that. Yeah. But still, my big question is this:
it's washing.
What is the value?
Yes.
What is the value? While the guests are there, and then we go on record to say, look at, and I would wish you would play the sound at Taifa Hall on that day and pick what Kenyans were saying and reflect with that the former deputy president is saying, and then we confirm whether this is the truth.
But if Kenyans learn that a French company benefited 6 or 7 billion shillings without doing anything,
and before you hand it to him,
yeah,
they can moderate them for your information, they direct them for your information, and they are them for your information. Are you aware that Kenya is obligated to pay, even up to now, those dams that were terminated by the former regime out of those systemic engagement,
whatever,
and already as we talk right now, we are on the dead brim of paying them without service.
And we don't, for normal Kenyan, a common mwananchi, they don't care who's the head of state. But when they come and make us pay more for no service, of course Kenyans will be
It's good to bring about.
It is a valid point, yes. But the issue is not even about that particular issue about the 7 billion shillings. It's a kind of feeling, a relationship with France and even the Western countries. Do you think that the point by the former deputy president is valid?
Of course, all of us, we have all opinion. And we are lucky that we have somebody in finance committee that sat on this and the processes. And I think he has explained how this happened, that the parliament approved about 6 billion. When you cancel tenders, then you are obligated to pay. Even if it were not France, if it were US, it was China, and it was cancelled, the same thing would have happened. But I think maybe it is a coincidence. I don't know whether it is a coincidence of an accidental situation, of an incident, or it was planned, that the head of state of France was here, and the farms which were cancelled were from his country. And irony, what I would think, was he involved with those farms? If Kenyans think that those farms are from France, was the head of state involved, or those are different entities? You know, sometimes we can tie a country to an individual. These farms operated quite independently without his knowledge. As a country, a developed country, you can have big farms that can have contractual obligations in various countries without approval of the head of state. So that is also one aspect. But again, we cannot prevent Kenyans from thinking that he was involved, and now that he was here, because Kenyans also can be expressing maybe their frustration. But one of the things that we must accept is that although two wrongs don't make a right, but successive governments have terminated many contracts that Kenyans are still paying. Not necessarily this one, but even the previous governments. But as Kenyans, we can always say that two wrongs don't make a right. Maybe that instance, during that time, it was not blown out that maybe there are contracts which were terminated and Kenyans are paying. But this Rironi, I think, has raised a lot of eyebrows. I don't know why. But that levy fund, the securitization of the levy fund, is not necessarily about paying the farms which were terminated. Because the 6 billion came procedurally through supplementary budget in parliament and passed by the parliamentarians. So this levy that they're talking about diverted to pay the France farm, I think this is another different kind of thought that is now being brought to our minds.
Okay, as we finish this discussion, Ruto asks, was it right for the former deputy president to find it fit to wash our dirty linen in public when visitors are here?
Your words. If you don't want your dirty linen to be washed in public, please keep your linen clean. So if government is keeping its linen dirty, we will wash it in public. Because government should keep its linen tidy and clean. So I don't think that my party leader, Gachagua, made any mistake by washing that dirty linen in the public. So let Ruto, President Ruto and his government keep all the linens clean. That's why you are elected as president. You're not elected as president to make linens dirty, and now you expect the opposition not to wash them in public. We'll wash them in public as long as they are dirty. But allow me to maybe make an observation about the argument that Honorable Ruto has given here. And he has said that he is in the finance committee. I think what I was waiting for him to tell us is why in the first place was the contract cancelled. Because if we cancelled this particular contract because we got a lower bid, and then we did some computation and we discovered that even when we pay for cancellation of this contractual obligation, that we will still save some money, then you can be able to convince Kenyans that we cancelled this particular contract. Because we knew whatever it was going for and whatever we were going to pay for cancellation of the same combined was still more, than what now we will be able to pay. And so they were saving in public funds. But now it was cancelled from the original 159 billion to 200 billion. I would like to hear from the Finance Committee, represented here by Honorable Ruto, why in the first place it was cancelled. Why Rigathi Gachagua said what he said is because, Fred, whatever exists, the relationship between different countries is about interests. When Macron is here, he is not here to promote Kenyan interests. He is here to promote French interests. And these interests are, of course, through French companies. So why would Macron be so happy with the government of Kenya, led by President William Ruto, that actually contracts that had been awarded to French companies were cancelled? So Rigathi Gachagua was right in saying why Macron was very happy, even after this contract was cancelled, denying French firms, this business. It's because they would rather, and I would also be happy to do that, they would rather receive the 7 billion Kenya shillings, having done nothing. Because how would you explain that Macron is not concerned that French companies lost business? And why? So I think when Ruto comes back, if you have time for that,
we'll make time for this discussion.
Then he would next time maybe he should tell us why we would cancel a contract worth 159 billion, take it to 200 billion, then pay 7 billion. But finally, he has said that he has talked about Kimwarel and Aror dams. We are not here, we are discussing the issues at hand and why Kenyans reacted that way. Why Rigathi Gachagua said what he said. It is because Kenyans have no faith in this government. And why? In the contracts that it makes. And why do they not have faith? It's because of what we have seen. We lost 104 billion. You are told it was going to pay for the SHA system. So there is a history that is making Kenyans not trust the contract that the government is getting into. So I wish he would allow me to finish because I did not interrupt him. So we are saying, Fred, people will stop trusting you if you have a history of not being trustworthy. Right. So that's why Kenyans are behaving like this.
And I don't want us to discuss, to go deep in discussing that, but it's posed a challenge.
Not to leave what my good friend is saying here, trying to disinform Kenyans. Number one, he's a senator, and he sits in the House of the Senate, where health is a devolved function. But this thing of 104 billion has been said over and over. I'm here to see a proper report from the statement sought by him and clarity being provided for Kenyans so that we stop being misleading Kenyans. Speaking on this issue of French farm and Mau Summit, remember this is not just any other tender. It was a PPP. And some of the PPP issue is a block things. You build up, the grounds until you get to a point of actualizing the implementation. So if at some point things could not move, because I remember the aspect of this thing started during the time of Uhuru Kenyatta. Why it was stopped? Because either way it was stopped, and it stole everything. So it is only this regime that has come to and to open up it again, so that the project now is being implemented as we talk right now. And like where somebody was saying, it was a peer works happening right from Mau Summit, because I used these works happening. So it was a question of reorganizing this to happen. And one of it, because the terms and conditions, and if it could not work on the other one, was to part ways. Right. But as I said, some of these things that involves foreign engagement are watertight kind of engagement that at the point of pushing back, you must also bear the cost of it for the sake of the work to happen. Lastly, coming to it, when you say that you want to watch dirty linen because they were dirty, because they were what? We've lacked some sense of what you call
decorum?
Not even decorum, I say, the aspect of that nationalism in us. We oppose each other. This is our democratic space. You are in power, I'm not in power. I'm trying to look for a way of punching you out because I want to come to power. But there's a broad cloth that is covering all of us called Kenya. In the sovereignty. It doesn't push us outside.
All right.
So whenever a friend or a neighbor is there, you go and speak out. Oh, unajua kwetu hakuna tu chakula jana, kwetu mama na nani walifurutana jana masikio, and you are telling neighbors, do you expect them to come and tell mama na baba wanalala kwa kitanda tofauti? Do you come and expect them to come and put your mother, your father and wife to be in the same bed? I mean, that's what we are saying. Please, for some sense, let us come back to our sense and deal with our issues here and here. Because the other guy, whatever happened, is not after him. What we should be looking at this one. And we should be looking at this one because our economy in Kenya, we don't export minerals.
Okay.
But we are looking for opportunities to open up a new frontiers on what we have, like tea, like coffee. Remember, for far too long after independence, Africa, we have more than 50 countries.
Yes.
That we are not benefiting from each other because of language barrier, because of...
and I want us to move on to the other discussion because...
so that's what I'm saying. As we close this one, let us also look at the positive aspect of connecting the east part of Africa, the English part of Africa, to the French part of Africa, so that we can trade together and build our economy.
And the Africa Forward Summit came to an end yesterday. The kind of reactions we've witnessed, how the relationship